Ms. Ransell, will you call the roll, please?
Mr. Tillman,
I am here.
Mrs. Maskell,
Here.
Mr. McClary,
Here.
Mr. Ferrero,
Here.
Mr. Van Schack, Mrs. Gage,
Here.
Mr. Mooney,
Present.
Mrs. Haas, Dr. Haas,
Here.
Mrs. Barringer.
Here.
Thank you.
Mr. Ersing, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Sure.
Pledge allegiance
To the flag
To the flag of the United States of America.
of
And to the republic
for which it stands,
one nation,
under God,
justice for all.
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I will entertain a motion for an approval of the minutes from April 14th, 2020.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mrs. Gage, second by Mr. Ferraro. Any discussion? None being heard, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Presentations and honorings, do you have anything?
Yeah, I have a few. I know traditionally this time of year, we would have a more of a ceremony, but I want to congratulate our valedictorian and salutatorian. This year, our Nicole Peters was valedictorian and Mark Danza was the salutatorian. Nicole is the daughter of Patty and Phil Peters. She has a GPA of 101.96. This fall, she'll be going to study computer science at Northeastern. Our salutatorian is Mark Danza. His GPA was 101.48. He is the son of Sherry and Mark Danza, and he's going to be attending RIT, studying computer engineering as well. We also have people that we would have had a ceremony tonight, but hopefully this summer. We have people that are receiving tenure this evening, and we also have a few retirees. And there's one other person I would like to recognize. She'd be mad if she was here, so I'm glad she's not. But the amount of work that Jerry Gardner has done, as you know, our office staff has been down. Since the pandemic has started, she has been in the office every day. She was here past 5 o'clock last night, making sure that anybody that dropped anything off, she has just done an amazing job. So I just wanted to recognize her as well.
That's it? All right, public recognition. I don't know if we have anybody from the virtual public wanting to speak. No, communications to the board. Superintendent's report.
I just have a couple quick things before we have a presentation on the capital project by Tetra Tech and BBL. Just a couple things I want to talk about. We had 2 meetings already on our reopening task force. I'm very happy. We've got about 20 members on that. This past week, we broke that into 2 subcommittees, one for elementary and one for secondary. We're having another meeting this Thursday. We're going forward with, as you know, if we ever do get to phase 4 for opening, we have to submit that plan. The task force, I think, is doing a great job. Tom has had multiple meetings to discuss graduation at the high school. So as that goes forward, I'll keep the board in the loop. The community's been great. They've reached out to us. STA has reached out to us, Mr. Costello and Mr. Murphy, as well as Cantine and everything. So I'm sure they're going to put together a great way to acknowledge our seniors this year. We've had a couple conversations about what summer school may look like. We'll have further guidance on May 29th when the governor actually comes out with his guidance on summer school. Couple things, as you know, I'll give you quickly our calendar for the budget. We applied for our BMR permit for application. Legal notice will be in the Saugerties Times on May 14th. It was in the Freeman today. The postcard should be going out the 15th. Next Tuesday, the board will set the budget. Ballots will be mailed on the 20th. We're using NTS. 26th of May will be the public hearing for the budget. The budget vote will be June 9th. The ballots have to be in at 5 o'clock. Just a couple concerns that I think people need to know about. And the superintendents have addressed this with our district superintendent, who has addressed this to the state. We're going to have to bring in probably over 20 staff members to count the ballots, which means we have to do social distancing as well as PPE and everything else while they're working to count these. It's an extremely tight calendar to get everything out to everybody and to get everything back. Just the mailing and getting all the permits. And the cost to us is gonna be about $40,000. So I just think that, you know, it's probably, I don't think anything's gonna change, but I just wanted people to know that this is a tremendous burden, not only economically, but this time of year with everything going virtual, to make sure that we're getting this done properly. You know, so the work that Sherry and Jane and everybody's doing to make this happen is an awful lot. So with that, we are gonna have a update on our capital project with BBL and Tetra Tech. You want us to share the PowerPoint, or do you want to do it from your end, Mike?
If you could share it, that'd be very helpful.
Yeah, Sherry.
Thank you.
Would you like me to share my desktop?
Right now, I'm sharing the capital project overview.
Oh, okay, I can't see it unfortunately on the screen here.
Can't see it yet.
No, you're not sharing anything. I mean, I'm sure you're trying to, but. There we go. Yay.
Here it comes.
Here it comes. Thank you.
Now I see it.
Okay.
So,
Great.
go ahead. I think we're going to say we're going to do it in conjunction with Garrett and Jim. And what we try to do is just kind of give an update of where we're at, all the work that's taking place and what's coming forward from us, and some timelines associated with that. That's the cover sheet. A lot of the work has been done initially by Jim and his team for the building surveys, looking at the conditions and really working with the COVID-19 by kind of segregating who could be out there and when. I think if we could go to the next slide. Okay, and maybe Jim, this is a good intro for you if you want to take over for this part.
Sure. So as Mike said, there's lots of work that's being done right now behind the scenes, and a lot of it had to do with identifying those needs to ultimately get some updated budget pricing and establish the priorities of the project. Part of it is trying to integrate that with a long-range facilities plan for the district so that this project in particular has sort of a home, if you will, within a greater scheme of the work. So just trying to share a quick snapshot of where we are. And we know that we also have to integrate at some point with an EPC project, an energy performance project that is in the process of being developed, as well as there's some capital outlay exceptions, the, quote, 100K projects that we're also trying to work on planning out. I think if we go to the next slide. So where are we? Where have we been? It's a continuing process. There's a lot to it. What we've been doing, as Mike talked about before, is we've had our team out there on site. I know Mr. Randy Ricks and his group have been great at giving us tours and are probably experts at being able to do it blindfolded at this point. But really trying to get us into nooks and crannies of the buildings, look at some of the previous scope items, confirm things like that. So there's some of the team that you can see that's been out there. And ultimately, we're going to want to circle back and work with Mike and his team and the district just to sort of bring everything back together when we, as you see that bottom box, to sort of summarize the findings. So that piece is an ongoing portion at the moment.
Right, and to work toward milestones, the big first step was going to all the buildings. And as you can see, we've checked all the boxes. Now the next big step is summarizing the findings. And then that's where we'll have, I like to work toward milestones and the checkpoints. And that'll help us get to that checkpoint of trying to identify what we need and then starting to assign value to it, real-time value to it. So we're at a critical point, which again, the next big step that we're going to take as a team here.
Yes, well said. So I think we can go to the next slide, please. So this is a list of some of the items we've been looking at all the different buildings. There's a lot to look at, but I think it's easier to just sort of take a quick visual tour of some of the work at each building. Easier than running through the list, I think. So if we go to the next slide, please. So for instance, and this is going to be consistent of how we do a quick snapshot of each building. So these are some of the scope items that have been presented when when we've been on site in the district, walking around with Randy and his folks. You're seeing some of the exterior envelope, as it's been called in the past, in slides or photos 1 and 7, for instance. That means, doors, windows, some of that stucco-like siding that you see there that's been pelted with all kinds of indents over time, replacing that, making sure that things are weather tight. You can see there's some health and safety items with guardrails on the stairs in number 6, and the bleachers really are in need of attention in number 4. Transformer that's really old in the middle there in number 2 that needs to be replaced. Some windows that are failing. As you can see, we can pull some of the flashing apart, and you have a giant conduit for water down the wall in 5. And then in 3, some various upgrades to different items like potentially flooring, seating, as well as some stage items with lighting in number 3. Go to the next slide, please. So at Cahill, a couple of items here worth pointing out. In photo 8, you see part of the exterior of the building. Lots of those windows need to be replaced. They're existing wood windows. Really need some attention. Below that in 11A and B, you're seeing just some examples of many of the flooring issues that are throughout the building, definitely in the corridors, also really in different classrooms as well. Needs replacement. Number 9, and this is actually typical of all the buildings, there's still some knob hardware which is not ADA compliant. You need door levers. Just need to do some updates there.
Can I just ask a question regarding number 9? It just kind of striking a thought for me with regard to, school safety, school shootings. Is there any forward thinking being put forth in this plan for, the technology that is, the beginning technology that is there for making our students safe, at school for these lockdown situations, rather than just replacing doorknobs and whatever? What type of technology can we look at, and while we're doing this, be proactive in, what's going forth with that, that thought process?
So certainly safety and security is of paramount importance, and that's a great question. So as we get further into developing what those options might be, there's definitely multiple things on the market, products on the market, systems that you can use that can tie things together to create lockdown scenarios. There's also different types of hardware so that you have better control from the inside of the classroom instead of having to go outside to lock a door, things like that. So those are definitely items that will be considered as we move forward with ideas. So jumping back to a couple of other photos here. So in 12, you can also see in the gym area, there's the need for some handrails, guardrails in the gym seating area. And then 10, I know looks like just a big blob on the screen, but these are actually up on the rooftop of the original portion of the building. There's 4 of these, which are related to the HVAC system. The masonry around them definitely needs attention and restoration. Can you go to the next slide, please? So here at Riccardi, for instance, one of the things that may be considered, and I'm just using photo 13 as kind of representative of all the buildings, but at the moment, getting back to the point of safety and security, one of the questions I know that's of particular importance to me when I was walking around the building is how do you also create a safe and secure entrance at each building? And I know there's been a number of ideas that have already been shared about that. But I think, trying to look at the feasibility of how we might integrate some of those features into each building should be at least considered in this project. 14 and 15 shows some examples of doors that need either some different hardware to keep them safe, or in the case of 14, which is by the cafeteria, those doors really need to be recessed. We're also looking at that potentially being part of a capital outlay exception project, which would then free up a little bit of other money in the capital project for other needs. 16 is also going to be fairly typical at the different buildings, which is the existing operable panel systems that you see there, that big tall piece with the 9 on it. Those are in various states of disrepair, and they could be better served if these might have like an overhead curtain or something, so that you could still have 2 different activities in the gym at the same time. Next slide, please. Mount Marian, so again, with 18A and B, you're kind of seeing a similar situation play out with that gym door there. Lots of tape on it in this case. And then for 17, you're seeing the original electrical main distribution panel, the electric service that's in the boiler room. I know it's not a beautiful item there to look at, but it's time for it to get replaced. And there's also occasionally some flooding in the boiler room that can happen just by nature of what's going on in there. That piece of equipment also needs to either be relocated or raised up, since, as we all know, electricity and water don't play nicely together. Next slide, please. At Morse, in 19, we're looking at trying to connect the back of the building with a new walkway over to the parking area. And also, similarly in 20, resurfacing the walkway that runs along the main route over there near the parking lot. 21, what we're looking at here is the end wall of the gym, where one of the items to be considered is the possibility of adding like a multi-use stage to this. Something that would have the ability to be used for a number of different functions. So that would be something that could be considered there. Next slide, please. And at the Hildebrandt Building, again, just some various examples. Really, all these are pointing to different items on or near the ramp on the end of the building, but definitely the guardrails over there are rusting through. Some of them have actually started to pop out of the concrete and the masonry a little bit. You're also seeing just some masonry needs attention over there. So if you go to the next slide, this is really just kind of recapping. I'm not going to run through them again, but just so you can understand them a little bit better. And again, these are just representative of some of the many things we were looking at in the process of really compiling all that information, like Mike said. Next slide, please. So I'll start this, and then Mike can certainly jump in here. So right now we're in the pre-referendum phase leading up to a vote. Really looking at a vote in December, and at the moment what I did is really just took a quick look if there was a vote on Tuesday, December 15th, just as an example. you have to have the board make ultimately a resolution on the scope that would be in the project. We're on track for developing that. That's certainly an ongoing process, kind of like what we're talking about tonight. But that would have to be finalized in the October timeframe, 45 days before a vote. So if you're using December 15th as a vote date, and you had on your second Tuesday in October, which I believe is the 13th of October, that would give you 63 days, which obviously is sufficient time from between the resolution and the vote time frame. There's lots of other things that need to happen before then, and part of what we're doing and I'm working on right now with Mike as well is sort of filling in what those specific priorities, those action items that, be it by the district or whomever, we need to act on so that everybody has a bigger, clearer picture of what the process is. And then after the vote, after that referendum vote, that's when the design and construction phases go. Those things obviously would need to be fleshed out in a little bit more detail as we get a little bit farther along, a lot of which is scope dependent.
Yeah, and the things that are not pictured on the timeline there is the things that we need to do between now and September is, again, defining the priority lists, checkpoints along the way of putting real numbers and budgets toward it, continuing to engage the district team members, getting up to the point of when you're in that September timeframe, being able to have this information and being aware of it as we go along to make an informative decision and having real numbers that go with it. A lot happens between now and then. This is just a big picture overview.
Yeah, as part of having as transparent a process so that everybody can be engaged to whatever level they want or need to be as part of we move forward in that timeline. But we're on track. This is a typical scenario that you would see for timeframes in a pre-referendum phase, and we'll continue to work to so that for the next update meeting we have another bigger level that we can share with the group. Next slide, please. And so really, as we've already talked about a little bit, it's an evolving process as far as just we're in the middle of gathering things together so that we can make that next step of reviewing with everybody, with having hard numbers and moving forward with things. And then ultimately it'll lead into some of the marketing and community engagement, the interpretation piece of this. I don't know, Mike, if you have anything else you'd like to add at this point?
I think you hit the bullet points. Again, it's constant team involvement from the educational perspective to shareholder meetings with the different groups, depending on the topic, if you were doing science labs, et cetera. And again, it's a group effort of getting us to that point of having a concise, clear project and with real numbers and good, solid timelines.
Yeah, and I think the last point that I just wanted to add is that right now that it's a lot of infrastructure is really the highlight of this project. And as I know we've mentioned before, but I like to just mention it again, part of moving forward is finding other things like educational enhancements or something else that might be needed to be added to the project so that we have really that overarching collective engagement.
And this is Garrett. The one other thing I'd like to add is that, first of all, the presentation I thought did a pretty good job of summarizing everything up well. Just to be at this point, to have gotten the field work done, even without the coronavirus, would have been a challenge. And so to see it come to this point now is really a good spot to be in. And then the other thing I wanted to mention is as Mike starts to put together numbers, costs for each of the scope items, we're still targeting the capital project that has a no tax impact. So the $22 million project is the sort of threshold that we're eyeing. And I just wanted to remind folks of that.
Any questions? that we can help answer?
I know there's a tight time frame tonight, so I would also offer up that certainly any questions that you think about afterwards, certainly pass them through Mr. Reinhardt or however the communication should flow, and we can be happy to take a look and respond.
Are there any? Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I said thank you.
I was going to say, if there are any specifics that the board would like presented or testing focus on a little bit more, definitely want the feedback on that. Continue, doing all the work behind the scenes. We just want to, again, stay on top of your needs, be real conscious of what the district needs, and continue to march toward some timelines here. Want to make sure we're addressing everything that the district needs at this level.
So can I ask a question? We've talked several times in meetings before about, restructuring and things of that nature. Has there been any talk about, which building would, needs the most work as far as, would save us the most money if that weren't a functional building, or, how much the project would save us if we were down one building? Obviously it's not going to be the junior, senior high school, and I know that needs the most work, but, is there any decisions been made on, like, if this building were to close, you'd save more money because with the restructuring process, you would, have the ability to save that money, or no?
That's not something we've been actively pursuing at the moment. It's really been the data gathering so that we can start to have an understanding of what those costs might be. Okay. But it's something that could help lead into a study like that down the road, definitely.
And part of that is items like return on investment. How much money are we going to put in with new mechanical systems versus what you currently have, and how that projects out? I think prioritizing those items and giving that input to the district leaders of things we may not know about, if you're looking to, I'm gonna say, close a school, satellite there, or consolidate, we'll give you the return on investment that this is a good building to put your money in because you'll get X amount of time and lifespan out of either a roof or gear or windows. And again, we're constantly evolving, doing that as a group here to meet whatever concerns you have as you're growing forward.
I'm watching the chat chain that's going on, and there's some really interesting comments that are being discussed. In particular, things are changing, and so the topic of are all the buildings going to stay open? That's a real question that we'd like some information from you all regarding that. Kind of heard a little bit about it, but don't know how much on the forefront that conversation is. And then I think Krista Behringer's comment about the work that we are presenting that really are the needs of the building, are some of which are a lot related to, you kind of need them done one way or the other. Because if you're going to maintain a building, you're still going to need it to be watertight. So we'll just have to factor those kinds of things in as we move forward.
And I think, again, going back to this, when we started these conversations, we weren't dealing with this, this epidemic. And, I think it's something that we need to really consider of, where does technology bring us? What do we spend our money in infrastructure and buildings, sound buildings, or do we look at where technology is going to lead us in the next 5 to 10 years? And, are we going to be exploring distance learning or, online things? And, do we spend our money there? Obviously, we're right at the beginning of all of these, crossroads. So it's hard to say, all right, we're going to fix every single thing in the roofs and everything. But if nobody's going to be there, it's money not well spent. So I think we really have to kind of tread lightly as to where we're heading with this.
Yeah.
Now, what about the you have to correct me if I'm wrong, and I could very well be wrong, so I apologize. But what about, is it Riccardi that still needs work done, but we're not doing it because of asbestos abatement? Like, can we get going on that now since no one's in the school, or can we move that time frame up at all, or how's that?
Can I answer or no?
How is that?
Yeah.
Yeah, Mike, do you want to answer or do you want me to answer?
I'll take a first stab. So with Riccardi, because the students have been out and school was canceled for the year, abatement did take place recently inside the building, piping, insulation, those kind of items. So that took place recently. There's some more cosmetic putbacks with regards to ceilings. The district, Randy and his team will be addressing some piping items since the ceilings have been down. So we are jumping ahead. Now, the other part of it is starting earlier. So we've been coordinating, reaching out to the roofing contractor because there's an abatement process up on the roof and replacing the wood joists. So we're looking to start that earlier, just trying to get a confirmed time frame. The floodgates did open, to be honest, when the governor said, hey, no school. The phones went off the hook. Everyone wants to start earlier. So we try to get out ahead, and we did with the abatement, and then we're also trying to do the same with the roofing.
Okay, thank you.
Well, it was good conversation and discussion. I appreciate everybody's feedback and the opportunity to present to you tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We don't have a student rep remark. Do we have any board members who wish to speak? Go ahead, Kitty.
Yeah, yay to board docs. I'll just leave it at that. I think that's really going to transform things. Sort of related to that, but not entirely. One of our goals as a board was to create onboarding materials for new board members. And so we've talked about that, and we've all sort of lived a reality of now I feel like a functioning board in a great way. And so I would like to have us actually sort of start thinking about that because we have an election coming up. Krista and Sue, thank you for being on the ballot. And Damien, thank you so much for your service. And it's been so great to get to know you through this process. But I volunteer to sort of start to organize a shared drive, if Rocco would create it, for board onboarding. Because I think that it would be great for us to sort of get those pieces in place for new board members and for us to really be able to clarify what we want, and what we have experienced that would have helped us sort of get oriented to what's going on in our board meetings and how that works. Everybody's frozen. Am I frozen? No. Okay. People are just very still. Good. Okay. I didn't know if has been any outreach to our student rep to join us.
Kirk is checking into that.
Okay. And then in general, we've said this, but I don't think we can say it enough, is to thank everybody there providing the service that they're providing to keep this district going in a way that's really serving kids and families. And that even as onerous as sort of doing this balloting is, my feeling sort of sitting on the board is that it's like the center of civic society is having people have an equitable, accessible, and effective voting process. And so I really want to just applaud everybody, whether that's you, Sherry, going to the post office, or, people sort of stepping outside of this is what I'm used to doing and how this usually works. And I know that has a cost that I'm just very grateful, because I think that we can then sort of lead and demonstrate how we work to create a system that is equitable and accessible. And I think that that's actually the role of public schools in many, many, many different ways. So I just want to thank you all who are making that possible.
Thank you. Any other board members wishing to speak? Krista?
You have to unmute your microphone.
Sorry, thought I had it. Some brief updates from BOCES. Tomorrow at 6 through Zoom, they're having their budget adoption meeting. So I'll be there for that. At their April 29th meeting, during public comment, the teachers union representative spoke about the difficulties that they've had without face-to-face interactions, but also said on a good note, they're creating an oral history of their experiences. So all the students and the teachers are creating an oral history document for when this is over that they can share. Their North Star Virtual Academy update, and that's what they're calling their virtual education. Of interest was that in week 1 of our virtual education time, they had 250 unaccounted for students. By week 2, that dropped to 70, and by week 3, that was down to 40. And they are working closely with all of the different school districts to also coordinate that contact with the school districts. And I did verify, and I was sort of asking a little more questions about that, just in terms of, so if Kingston contacted and reached the family, they would count that as an accounted for student, because rather than having multiple schools reaching out to families that were struggling sometimes with 4 and 5 students all trying to use the same computer. So that's all I have for BOCES. From the association, we're talking about elections, and we just tonight received an email from NYSBA on Thursday, the March 14th. They're having an election ballot webinar from noon to 1. I signed up for that. And then here at Saugerties, just wanted to send some huge kudos to the Saugerties High School news crew. Their daily briefing is amazing and so enjoyable. It's one of those things that I've now kind of made it one of we have homeroom. So we watched the video in the morning, and today's nature video of their Spirit Day photos was, I just felt like it was something I'd love to see us put on public access TV or get it out into the community, because it really showed our community and people getting out in the community. And I know, sometimes we have individuals who, even before Corona, could not get out into the community. So for somebody to be able to share how beautiful it is outside when you can't get out. And then I also understand that in the past, Morse was also doing school videos, and I'm not sure, because I'm not connected to Morse or some of the other elementary schools, if anyone else is doing the same type of programming that our Saugerties High School news program is doing. If we could get those links publicly, because again, it really is a wonderful way to maintain the connection. And again, thank you to the students and the teachers who are making that happen.
Ms. Mascal?
Thanks, Bob. I know we have, there's 3 seats up, right? Do we have the names of the people that are running?
Ms. Francello is nodding her head.
It's Krista and Susan Gage are running. And we were contacted by Timothy Wells. He will also be running. So we'll have 3 members running.
And there's 3 vacancies, right?
Three candidates. 3 candidates.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Mr. Mooney?
Forgive me for having to get up and go a couple times. I was trying to hunt down some Tylenol. We're hearing a lot about the look backs and the budgets and everything at the governor's office. And I see on Facebook there's a lot of parents having a lot of difficulty with this, and I think people are starting to realize that there's a lot that actually happens within the school district and the services that are provided. So I definitely want to thank everybody, parents alike, all our teachers, our staff, administrators, for doing a phenomenal job in trying to make sure we get our kids across the finish line. But what I really wanted to say was, I'm gonna say it in English and then my Spanish is a little rusty. I'll try it in Spanish. Just because I don't know who's watching and I want to make sure that people, understand how important it is to vote. So I'm just going to read something I wrote. It's quick and then I'll be done. In the very near future, you'll be receiving a card in the mail. This card will allow you to vote in the school board election and for the school budget for next year. Please remember to vote. It's really important for our students and for future programming at the Saugerties School District. En español, para las personas hablan español, en el futuro muy cercano recibirá una tarjeta por correo. Esta tarjeta la permitirá votar en la próxima elección de la Junta Escolar por presupuesto escolar para el próximo año escolar. Es muy importante. Recuerde votar, es realmente importante para nuestros estudiantes y para la programación futuro en el distrito escolar de Saugerties. Gracias para su atención de esta mañana. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Yeah, Bob, I think I got to say a little thing here. It was certainly a difficult decision for me to make to not, continue on and go for a 9-year run. I've been here for 6 years, and I certainly didn't decide to step down from the board because of anything, going on in the administration or anything going on at the school or the COVID or any of the tough decisions in front of us. More for a personal front. My family has been getting older, and I've been missing a lot more of their time as far as sports were concerned, and work is starting to get really, really busy for me with regard to there's a new RFP coming out for the New York Lottery, and I knew the next 2 or 3 years were going to be very trying for me to be even in Saugerties. It'd probably be spent a lot in Rhode Island. So I thought it was a good time to bow out and be very proud of what I felt like I set out to accomplish when we were here. There was one time when I was going to get reelected or going for reelection after my first term, and somebody had asked me what was I most proud of in my first 3 years. And I said, my most proudest moments where we were talking about education at Board of Education meetings. And that was a huge thing because when we first got in there, it was very tumultuous. There was a lot of just not productive conversation. So, it started with Krista and myself running, and I can't thank Krista enough for being by us. A lot of times there was a 7-2 vote. She and I stuck by each other's side, had what we wanted to do. And then we had yourself, Jim, and Mike come on to really kind of just turn the way the education was going in Saugerties. And this is not to, take away from the effort that the other folks on the board put front before us, but it just seemed to me it was moving in the wrong direction. And then we turned with Paul and Sue and Dr. Haas and Elena, and we really made this board very welcoming to the community, very, very proactive, very homeopathic, if you will, and very, accepting to conversation coming into our boardroom. And I'm so proud to have served with all of you, to have known you. I feel at this point, having Kirk and Dan and Mr. Averill and all the administration staff that's here now, that I feel it would be hard for me to leave at a different time and to say I would stick it out. But I feel that the district is in great hands. And I truly appreciate, all of you, all of the sacrifices that my family have made, the complete support that I've got from the community, from all of my friends and family, my in-laws, and everyone there. It has been a pleasure for me to do this. I wasn't planning on doing this tonight, to be honest with you. But I don't know when there's going to be another time to do it in person. So it just seemed the right time where I didn't submit my my re-up, and I wish Tim the best of luck. I know that he will do a good job. He's running uncontested. I've coached with him, and he seems as his heart is in the right place. So I look forward to where the district is, and I'm always here to lend a hand, to do whatever I can to the community. Just because I'm not on the board doesn't mean I don't care and that I won't be involved. And I certainly hope that you all will reach out to me if there is a need for it, and I will certainly be on top of where things are. So I really appreciate all of you and the experience that I've had in the last 6 years. And it's not an easy thing to turn away from. I've been back and forth in the last couple of years with where it's heading, but I think now is a good time, and I'm comfortable with where we are, and I know the district is certainly in great hands. So thank you very much for everything, and I wish Saugerties Central School District nothing but the best.
Thank you, Damian. You were one of the people who convinced me to come back on the board, and I forgive you for that. But I do appreciate your service, and it's you've done good. You can hold your head high for that. If nobody else wants to speak, I'll get into board president remarks. You might have seen in yesterday's Post there was an editorial, stuck at home. New York declares war on schooling and parent sanity, and it talks about the dangers of the virtual classroom. On the Freeman Online today, there was a story about the Kingston board complaining against Governor Cuomo's partnering with the Gates Foundation. A while back, there used to be a TV show with Penn and Teller, and they would expose their magic tricks, how it was done. So I thought tonight I'd take a couple of moments to express my concerns, but talk about the sleight of hand that our governor is doing right now. Like a good magician, the governor will come out with a statement to try to impress people, but it's what you don't see that we need to be concerned about. And we really do need to be concerned about this. As a board, as a district, I'm sure Jane is trying to take Valium as she tries to figure out where the budget is going. The first thing that occurred in Governor Cuomo's magic show was the announcement to reform schools. He was announcing a commission to reform schools, and he was partnering with the Gates Foundation. What you don't see, the Gates Foundation promotes charter schools and is very anti-public school, but he forgot to mention that. Who asked for a reform in education? Was it the Board of Regents? Was it New York State Ed? Was it NYSET? Was it parents across the state crying out to reform education? No. It was Governor Cuomo trying to cover a tremendous budget shortfall with the idea that we'll have a virtual classroom. He was quoted as saying, who needs all these classrooms? Who needs all these school buildings? So that led to the appointment of a governor's commission. NYSET was not contacted. The New York State School Boards Association was not contacted. The School Administrators Association was not contacted. Those were all political appointees on the governor's commission with ties to the Democratic Party to push his agenda. Governor Cuomo doesn't set the education agenda in New York State. The Board of Regents sets the education agenda through the State Department of Education. So again, there's that sleight of hand. When he talks about virtual classrooms, what he's talking about really, or what he's not telling you, is he's going to cut aid. By the end of this week, we'll find out the first round of cuts to our school funding. The next round is on June 30th, which he can cut again, and he's involved a series of revolving cuts throughout the year on a quarterly basis. What is that going to do? It impairs districts from being able to fund their programs adequately, but he's not going to say that. If we look at what happened with the scandal with Governor Cuomo's response to putting COVID patients back in nursing homes, How did he deal with that? He is now blaming nursing homes for the failure to deal with those patients, and he's launched an investigation in nursing homes. The postcard vote. One of the things with the postcard vote, it's very easy to check out no and to push that back. So as we find and hear that the districts are going to have to make cuts and raise their expectations from taxpayers, people will vote no on the budget. What will happen is that the governor will not be accountable, but as school districts are forced to go on an austerity budget or raise property taxes to make ends meet, the school districts will now be the whipping post. And virtual education will be touted as a savior for that. And the school districts will now be the enemy. If you start to read the media, you'll see that what the governor is really proposing is a war on education as we know it in New York State. And I think we should be very concerned about that. He's certainly not a fan of mine. He's not a fan of the teachers unions. He's not a fan of the Administrators Association. He's not a fan of the School Boards Association. He's really not our friend in this process. So I think we have to be very guarded. As Jane presents the budget figures to us and we hear throughout the year, we're going to be faced with some very, very tough choices. And if we can do anything, I think we need to educate our parents and our community about the pressures that the school is facing. The school district is not the enemy. The administrative team, the teachers have been doing yeoman's work to go out during this crisis to keep us afloat. But it's not enough. If the school is denied state funding to maintain programs, that hurts kids. And that's not state ed doing that. That's not any of our associations. It's the governor trying to cover himself in a tremendous budget shortfall. And I'm very, very concerned about that. I don't want to see our preschool or kindergarten farmed out to private schools as a money-making enterprise. I don't want to see the Gates Foundation come in and usurp what we're doing. If they want to help out for free and they want to add to what we're doing, that's fine. But if it's being used as a smokescreen to undermine school districts across New York State, then I think we need to be very concerned. So I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but again, you know, when the governor speaks, look to what he's not saying and be very, very afraid about that. That's all I've got to say. I think we could waive the break because Kirk is signaling me that we have to, we're on a hard time schedule here. So Dr.
We have to take a break and then restart YouTube again.
Okay, so we're going to take a break?
Yes.
How long?
5 minutes.
5 minutes.
Okay, well, I was wrong. We'll take a break.
Yep. Yeah, YouTube gets only an hour at a time.
So for those of you at home, we will be back in 5 minutes.
Back in 5 minutes if you're watching at home.
So we can, so we just got to roll over every hour?
Yep.
Oh, all right.
Built-in breaks.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.